please help me welcome to the stage Director Nadia Latif, Corey Hawkins, Anna Diop, Willem Dafoe, Diane Houslin, John Giwa-Amu, and Jason Aidoo.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to TIFF for inviting us to premiere The Man in My Basement at your truly incredible festival. It is beyond an honour for us to be here in a strand with so many amazing other films. I'd also like to really quickly thank all the volunteers who really make this festival with their incredible hard work. It's really appreciated. Really, what a premiere is the moment that you stop making the film and you move instead to beginning to understand the film. And that can only happen with the final ingredient, the audience. So I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight, taking a chance on our film and becoming the next part of this film's journey. I thank you also for believing in cinemas and the act of gathering to watch a film together to create the collective experience of a film, particularly at a point in history when we are being encouraged more and more to see ourselves only as individuals. I'd like to thank the cast, both the amazing people you see on stage and the rest of the cast back in the UK. Corey, Willem, Anna, thank you all for your trust, grace, and remarkable good humour. As anyone who makes films know, we on stage are like the tiniest slice of people that it actually takes to make a film. And there are some other people in the audience tonight that I would like to thank. And at the end of the screening, I would like you to all form an orderly queue to ask them about their work or to work with them, because the work that you're going to see on screen is nothing less than extraordinary. They are Ula Pontikos, our cinematographer, Catherine Ida, our production manager, Lynn Ollie, our costume designer, Lisa Mustafa, our hair and makeup designer, Carmel Cochran, our casting director, and not last because he's a man, Robert Aiki Aubrey Lowe, our composer. I'm not sure any first-time filmmaker thinks that they will tackle the work of a literary titan as their first film. Walter Mosley wrote this book 20 years ago. I read it then, and it has stayed with me ever since. Sir, I thank you for letting me bring this story to cinema audiences. This was the first screenplay I have ever written, and to see my name up there with yours is mind-blowing. Thank you to protagonists for bringing me onto this film when I didn't even have a finished short film to my name. Thank you to Anscape for bringing this film to audiences. Thank you also to Film 4 for their part in the development of this film and for always putting filmmakers first. Thank you to my parents who flew a very long way to be here tonight. And who fed me books and films and theatre. My mum used to sometimes take me to the theatre twice on a Saturday, because when you see a creative spark in a child, you fan it as hard as you can. And thank you to my husband, who's the best, even when I'm the worst. I'll wrap it up by saying one thing only about the film you're about to see. At its heart, it's a story about a man who will do anything to keep his home because it's where he feels safe. When we were getting ready to make this film, my family and 13 million other people in Sudan had to flee our homes as we were attacked by a rebel militia who swept through the country. We have not returned in over 2 years. It is the largest displacement crisis in the world. Latest estimates are around 200,000 dead and 25 million people are at risk of starvation. We are the incredibly privileged few who had somewhere else to go, but it is a terrible thing to not know safety and to not know whether you will ever know safety again, whether you will ever be able to go back to your home, if it will ever be there at all. So please, when you go home after this wonderful festival, think about what you can do, what you can pressure your politicians to do to help those around the world who do not know safety, who are displaced by violence and just want to go home. Safety for those in Ukraine, safety for those in Congo, safety for those in Palestine, and safety for those in Sudan. Thank you very much and enjoy the film.
Thank all of you for joining us. Nadia, I want to start with you. You spoke a bit in the introduction about discovering the book, but what was your process working with Walter and collaborating in the writing of this? And what parts of the book did you change in the adaptation for the big screen?
Yeah, wow, sorry, that was really full on. That's a really full on thing to watch it with you all. And you were all amazing. Thank you so much. Sometimes I don't know where Walter ends and I begin, but I don't know whether that's Walter as the book or Walter as the screenwriter. I think the film is probably darker and more baroque, I think, than the book. Although I hope they kind of have the same humour, but I think, in truth, you know what's amazing about this is that there's like no risk of spoilers anymore, so we can just like talk about the thing, right? I, for 21 years, have remembered this image of a man buying a baby to feed to another man's dog, and that was really the central thing in the film for me. Was going that really it's a metaphor for capitalism, but do you know what I mean? And it's like we're all the dog, or we're the baby, or we're the man buying the baby to give, you know what I mean? Like I was like, and so it sort of all became about that, and this idea that, Aniston knows that everybody has a price. You know, if the woman will sell him a baby, Charles will sell him or rent him his basement. And I think that was what I was kind of bringing to it, was this, I'd already kind of decided what the central image of the film was, and that's how I could understand the rest of the film. But yeah, I mean, it was amazing. Me and Walter, we didn't really co-write on drafts. You know, he wrote some drafts, and then I took over and wrote the later drafts. You know, as we were pushing it towards production anyway. But it's been wonderful, and it's sort of been wonderful to see the bits where I go, oh, that's Walter. There's a bit where I'm like, oh nope, that is fully me. And you can just guess.
I want to ask Corey and Willem. This becomes a real sparring match between you two, and it's a dialogue and a tense contest between you two of ideas. How did you work this out in the filming of the movie, and like what was the dynamic you established? Was it through rehearsals? Did you kind of just let it play out as on set, or what was that like?
Go ahead. I'm dead. I may or may not be. No, I think a lot of it was we had a lot of time to rehearse separately with Nadia. It was a pandemic, and then there was the strike, and just a lot of time to really deep dive into who these people are, or who we imagine them to be, and then the beautiful part is that when you get together with an actor like Willem Dafoe, I mean, all you have left is to play. And you put a lot of that sort of work and that sometimes intellectual work or all of that other stuff aside, and you sort of beat by beat by beat. And the other beautiful part is that we all come from the theater, and so we got to shoot it in order, which was lovely because it sort of gave us everything we needed to beat through this with these characters. But it was fun. It was like literally, I mean, just like it's like playing tennis, a very intense game of tennis. But yeah.
Yeah, it was important that we shot in sequence, and there's codependency in this relationship, and that's why we can have this polemic and not seem so showy. So we need each other. We're moving towards these confessions. We're moving towards trying to deal with this hidden stuff that we both have. We're approaching it from different places, but we're pushed to some sort of crisis to try to resolve them. So I think it's kind of very cool that I can't go through my thing without him, and he can't really go through his thing without me. So it's this kinky codependency. So what starts out as a very cordial, kind of understandable, easy, renter, good for me, good for you. I get my place for meditation and thought, and you get some money. Then they're drawn together, and something clicks where they push each other, and that's kind of how the thing is constructed. Because, of course, you know where it's going because you've read the script, but how the velocity or how you get there is what we work out.
And can I just also add to that, that, you know, when looking at Charles, it was, a lot of it was looking at his stillness, and this man who is sort of stuck in one place, this paralysis that he's sort of going through emotionally, psychologically, financially, all of these things, plus that trauma and him dealing with that. But the thing, the sort of engines and motor he finds in Aniston, but he also finds it in Narcissus. And there's sort of two polar opposites, but they're also, when we're talking about good and evil and what that is, and which one falls on, you know, which side at any given time, was just incredibly great to explore. But we were just finding those things in the moment, I think.
That's a good segue, because I was going to ask you, Anna, about Narcissus provides this alternate path to Charles' very cynical view of his situation and kind of what to do with the masks that he finds. Can you talk a little bit about being that not uncomplicated, but like kind of beacon of light in what's a really dark time for him?
You took all my words to describe all of what I had to say about Narcissus. Yeah, she does come in as exactly that, as a beacon of light. And I think also regrounding him in his emotional self and his humanity, it's something that I think when we meet him, he's so far away from. So yeah, it was an honor to be able to be the character that I think in this is the most grounding for him, and just bringing him back to himself.
I actually always think Anna was rooting for them slightly harder than I was. Because I think there's something about, I can tell you the thing that me and Corey argued about the most was what book Charles is reading at the end of the film. Like up until shooting, I was like, is it one of Aniston's books? Is it one of his family books? Is it the third arm? And because in a way, what Aniston and Narcissus represent is this idea that you could just follow two people. He could either like follow what Aniston's beliefs, or he could follow, and actually that's not what he needs. And so the whole idea of putting the Franz Fanon at the end was this idea that like a black man must determine himself. Do you know what I mean? Like actually he needs to go back into himself and go, who am I? What is my blackness? How do I exist in the world? How do I exist inside the notion of a colonized mind? So actually, I sort of, I'm rooting for them. I sort of hope they get together eventually. But in a way, I'm like, no, Charles is on this amazing voyage of like radical black self-discovery. Like he's got a new do, like he's got a new look. Like this is good. He's going to be on his own. Like for once, he doesn't need anyone.
There were also some red flags there, so I think,
That could have been one of Aniston's books.
It could have been one of Aniston, yeah.
It could.
You spoke a bit about your version is darker and more Baroque than the original text. And did drawing out some of those horrific elements, like almost genre elements of this story, get to a kind of emotional immediacy? We're talking about race, we're talking about power, that just a straight dramatic or kind of existential read wouldn't have.
Yeah, I sort of feel like it's a story about an extraordinary thing happening to an ordinary person, and so you should probably put some other extraordinary things. But I think it's, I like to think that everything is sort of founded in some truth. Like I think that the whole imagery of Rwanda, or if you're listening carefully, there's news about O.J. Simpson happening on the radio at one point. Do you know what I mean? Like I think all of that is like the horror of living and the horror of like consumption, and you know, you're the child or you're the dog, and the dog is eating the deer, and the deer is just an accident. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's like, I think for me, the idea was always that through Aniston, Charles accessed the evil of the world, the evil that is just there. Aniston's like, that's his daily bread. And actually, the second he sort of opens that up from, and not to be impolite about Sag Harbor, but this very kind of protected enclave, and he sort of opens himself up to what it is to be in the world, what it is to be black in the world, what it is to be conscious in the world, then it becomes a horror. Like it sort of can't help itself. Or at least I think I, as a filmmaker, didn't want to close the door to it, because I was like, he needs to kind of step through that. So yeah, I'm not sure that's necessarily the answer, but yeah.
I want to turn it over to the audience for your questions. Yes, right there in the blue shirt. Yeah. What was your favorite scene to film?
Curious for you guys too, what you guys thought too. But that's hard. That's really challenging. You know, I really like when he puts on the suit and goes to see Narcissus.
That was a nice day.
Yeah, it was a good day, you know, until it wasn't.
Something happened.
Yeah, yeah.
To bring up that.
I like the scene where Corey was swimming underwater. Corey cannot swim.
I'm like, why do you
But-
like this?
Sorry.
It's trauma.
It was really sweet because neither could the 10-year-old boy playing Corey as a child. So suddenly Corey's problems went yeet out the window because he obviously had to man up in front of this like 10-year-old to be like, we've got this kid, like it's cool. But also we were shooting in Wales in January and we just shot the beginning of the swimming scene, which God bless Corey Hawkins, just dove into the sea at night in Swansea. It's like -4 degrees outside. And then we were shooting this underwater bit in a swimming pool, which was heated. And we were all inside, and there was pizza. And I was just like, this is it. This is great. This is the best day of this film, and it was day 4. No, they were all good.
Anyone
I
else?
think the party scene is fun because whenever you have a bunch of people together, and shout out to our London, sorry, Willem, yeah. Shout out to our London cast. Yeah, because it's a heavy film, you know, so when you have days like that where everyone's kikiing and...
I also just like when anybody had like anything practical to do. Do you know what I mean? Like the second anyone's got to like make a coffee or like eat some food. Like I just love. I like my next film. I just want to do like I want to do my like Killer of Sheep and do like a film about somebody's job. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think I just watched that film Holy Cow about making cheese, and I'm just like that is what I just want to do a film where every scene is like doing. Do you know what I mean? Because I love all of the scenes in this film when somebody is doing something.
Yes, right there.
When watching the film, I kind of expected Charles to maybe bring one of his friends down into the basement to show him the white man in the cage. And even though that might be different than the novel, did you ever consider doing that?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. I mean, you know, he buries the windows. That's how much he's terrified that anybody is going to see this white in the basement. It should be said, it is a deviation from the novel. In the novel, he's sort of less afraid of getting caught. But the whole way that we reformatted how Aniston kind of slightly tricks him, just a little bit. He didn't ask. Do you know what I mean? Like that's all quite different in the novel. But I just found it quite interesting, this idea that you'd make a deal with a guy and actually have no idea what the stakes are. Like that to me was, I think the only really good joke in the film is when the cage gets revealed. Like I find that personally deeply hilarious. Just like this just got so much worse.
Yes, there was a question back here. Can't see your hand. Okay, you put your hand down. Oh, yes.
So in the movie, a lot of Charles's tormentors, initially it feels like there are a lot of external, but then it seems that at the end that it's all coming from something that he's been feeling from inside of himself as a result of all the trauma that he's had. At the end of the movie, do you feel that he's resolved all of those internal traumas as a result of the movie taking place, or do you think that that red pill that you added at the end is like, hey, here's your get out of jail, just end it all because you're still dealing with stuff?
So at the end of the movie, do you feel like all of Charles's traumas were resolved, or that the red pill was kind of the get out of jail free resolution?
I'm curious what you think, to be honest. I mean,
I don't know, I've never read the book, so adding that little detail of the red pill just says something, and then the whole being in jail at the end still is like, he's still going through stuff.
But the door's open. Do you know what I mean? I think it's about choice. It's about determining yourself. And actually, he can't pretend that Aniston never happened. You know, but in a way, it's about, you know, he repopulates that cage. He fills it full of his own artifacts. He puts, you know, his mother's paintings, her picture, you know, because actually Aniston is kind of right at the beginning of the film where he says, men have cut themselves off from humanity since the dawn of time, and Charles is going to give it a go. That's my idea. But, you know, make of it what you will.
But he also, he inhabits that space in a way, but also the museum is born. So, you know, his problem is he's stuck. he's tied to all these events of the past, and that tortures him, and he keeps on saying he's stuck, he's stuck, he's stuck. He ain't stuck no more.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about Sag Harbor as a location, because I think I'm from the States, and so I know a little bit about historically black neighborhoods, but the fact that this is his ancestral home also says something very subtle about his class when he starts out and the particular position he's in. Do you want to talk about Sag Harbor as a place and what that means?
Yeah, it should be said, I think it's always really difficult when you are working on a piece of fiction that's set in a real place, and the book is a piece of fiction, and it sort of takes what is useful and what isn't useful about a place. But I think I, having been to Sag Harbor many, many times, was sort of more moved by the makeup of the people there and how dominant women felt there. It's women who are the head of the Cinema Society and the Historical Society, and they're like running things. I don't know whether they just like killed all their husbands so they could sit around and play bridge, but it's a vibe. And so I felt like the biggest thing that changed about the film was this notion of what all the women were doing in a film, really dominated by two men, and actually feeling that they were all strong and they were all their own people, and actually. I think it's quite a big deviation from the novel. In the novel, I would say Charles is much more romantically and sexually successful. And I think I was more interested in the idea of him wanting and not getting. So this idea of his own impotence, like he would love to, but he's a hot mess. So he's not so much a great catch at the moment, but one day. But I think I'm hopeful if he reads enough Frantz Fanon, he's going to be okay. But I think that what was also interesting about Sag Harbor is that Charles's house is slightly a fiction, in so much as the houses there typically would be much smaller residences that maybe got added on to later and later. But actually that was quite freeing, and it sort of meant that our production designer, Catherine Aidoo, who's a remarkable woman, was able to go, like, actually the house is both a thing that we construct around the idea of his family, but also a kind of body politic. He's hiding things in the basement, he's hiding things upstairs. You know what I mean? Like, it sort of exists as a real and an unreal space. But we were really lucky. We shot the majority of the film in Wales, and then we went to go and shoot a few days in Sag Harbor, which was us just like running and gunning everything, being like, shoot a tree, shoot a deer. Those are Sag Harbor deer. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's. I hope they forgive us. Do you know what I mean? For all the bits that are maybe not Sag Harbor, but we don't need to know.
We don't want to know exactly what happens to Charles at the end of the movie, but there's a lot of provocative conversations and really difficult conversations in the film, and it ends with the museum, as we talked about. So what do you hope is the takeaway from this, this last shot where people in the neighborhood are actually coming to see their own history, and what kind of out does that give us in some of these really difficult issues about race and class and power? To revisit our pasts?
I think it's recognizing that history is a story, and you have to always question who wrote it. And actually, if you're receiving your history from people who don't look like you, or maybe have any understanding of your experience, then maybe you should seek other historical sources. And that's why Charles is reading the book that he's reading at the end. But actually, I did a lot of research into people turning their homes into museums, and was incredibly moved by it as an idea. And there is a home in Sag Harbor that has been turned into a museum. It's not there anymore because gentrification sucks. But it did really exist. So I find it very hopeful. I also think that there's something about. We were saying this earlier, but like Narcissus is just like slightly out of time. During the film was set in 1994, and I feel like if she'd just been like 20 years later, she might have got some real purchase on the things that she, I really wanted to read her book about African American textiles, and then there's just been an African American textiles exhibition that toured the world. So I mean, like I sort of feel like that's quite hopeful, because actually that history is being told a little bit more now. But yeah, I think it's hopeful. I hope it's hopeful. Is it hopeful? Yeah.
And also, in speaking to just where we are today, and not to be heavy-handed on it, but just, in a world where we're constantly, like you said, history is being written by, sometimes the victors, and that connection that Black people have to the land and to their past, and to that decision to carry or not carry that history and that legacy with you is a very important decision. But land is not just land, it is survival, it is inheritance, and it means so much culturally to hold on, to have that museum in a world where those things are being, we're sort of being dictated what our history should or should not be. So I'm just, I'm encouraged by that in Charles's decision to sort of step into that space and own that, as is his right.
Well, it's so smart and it's so relevant, and we're really proud to have it here at TIFF. So thank you for bringing it to Toronto, and thank you for your questions.